My wife demanded 1 week of freedom. I gave her a lifetime and watched her shatter. Karen walked through our front door at 10:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, which was odd because book club usually ended by 9. I was reviewing quarterly tax returns at the kitchen table when she started fidgeting with her car keys, that nervous habit she developed whenever she was hiding something. "Greg, we need to talk," she said, her voice carrying that rehearsed quality I'd learned to recognize. I closed my laptop slowly, giving her my full attention while my accountant's brain automatically started cataloging inconsistencies. The women at book club were discussing personal growth, and I realized I need some time to rediscover who I am outside of being a wife, she continued, still not meeting my eyes. "What exactly are you asking for, Karen?" I kept my voice level. "Just 10 days, she said quickly. 10 days of complete freedom. No questions, no check-ins. I leaned back in my chair, studying her. The new perfume I'd never seen her wear. The lingerie with tags still on. The way she'd changed her phone password 3 weeks ago after 7 years of it being our wedding anniversary. "Okay," I said simply. Her face brightened with relief. "Really?" "Absolutely. In fact, let's make it permanent instead of 10 days. You want freedom? You've got it." The blood drained from her face. "Wait, what?" "Greg, I didn't mean..." "No, you're absolutely right." I walked past her toward our bedroom, feeling strangely calm. "If you need space to find yourself, who am I to limit you to just 10 days? I pulled out her largest suitcase and started gathering her designer handbags, the ones she'd bought during her supposed overtime shifts at the hospital. "Greg, you're being ridiculous. I just wanted a break, not a separation." "A break from what exactly?" I methodically folded her clothes. "From our marriage? From me? From whoever it is?" She froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Karen, I'm an accountant. I noticed discrepancies. I kept packing. Like how you canceled our couples therapy sessions but still left every Thursday at 6:30. Or the charges from restaurants in Denver when you were supposedly at conferences in Colorado Springs." I pulled out the unworn lingerie. "Nice set. Shame I never got to see you in it. Was it for book club? Or for those late-night emergency shifts?" "You've been spying on me?" "I've been paying attention," I corrected, zipping the suitcase. "I notice you've been coming home at 11 p.m. every Tuesday after book club that ends at 9. She started to cry. "Greg, please. I made a mistake. I never wanted to lose you." "You're not losing me. You asked for freedom, and I'm giving you exactly what you requested." I loaded a second suitcase. "If I loved you, I'd manipulate you into staying? I'd beg while you went off with Dr. C during your 10 days of freedom?" Her silence was answer enough. "That's exactly what you expected. The dramatic confrontation, the tears and promises. Then you'd feel guilty enough to come back after your adventure." I carried both suitcases to the front door. "I'm 43 years old. Too old for games and too smart to be anyone's safety net." She followed me, mascara running. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Your mother's in Boulder." I opened the door. "She's always said you settled for less than you deserved." I set the suitcases on the porch. "I'll have the rest of your things packed by this weekend." "Greg, please." She was sobbing now. "I love you. I don't want a divorce." "Then you should have talked to your husband instead of whoever Dr. C is." I started closing the door. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to know I deserve better than being someone's backup plan." I closed the door and watched through the window as she loaded her suitcases into her BMW and drove away. Once alone, I walked to my office and opened the desktop computer. She'd forgotten to log out of her cloud storage. Months of deleted messages to Dr. C were archived in folders she thought were hidden. Each message complained about our boring suburban marriage and detailed plans for romantic getaways to Aspen during her Freedom Week. I took screenshots of everything, organized them with meticulous care, and emailed them to my divorce attorney. Then I went back to my tax returns. Because that's what you do when your world falls apart. You focus on what you can control. The next morning started with 12 missed calls from Karen and 17 text messages that progressed from apologetic to angry to desperate. I ignored them all and made my coffee, The same routine I'd followed for 7 years, except now the house felt different without her clutter everywhere. By 9 a.m., I was packing more of her belongings when I found designer handbags on her closet shelf like trophies, each probably costing more than our monthly grocery budget, purchased during shifts she claimed were mandatory overtime. I pulled down a Prada bag and found receipts inside. Dinner for 2 at restaurants I'd never been to, hotel charges in Denver for weekends she said were medical conferences. The evidence was almost insulting in how carelessly she'd hidden it. My phone rang again. Her mother, Barbara, calling from Boulder with that judgmental tone she'd perfected. "Gregory, what did you do to my daughter?" She showed up here hysterical, saying you threw her out without warning. I walked to my computer and pulled up the screenshot folder. "Did she mention why I asked her to leave, Barbara?" "She said you had some paranoid delusion about an affair. That you've become controlling and abusive. I'm going to send you an email, Barbara. Open it before you call me abusive again." I attached messages where Karen called me boring and predictable, where Dr. C promised excitement and adventure, where they planned their Aspen getaway during her Freedom Week. "I'll wait," I said, hearing her computer chime. The silence stretched for 3 minutes. "Oh my God." Barbara's voice had lost its self-righteous edge. "Gregory, I had no idea. Did she mention the 10 days of freedom she requested? Or did she frame that differently?" I heard Karen's voice in the background, frantic, demanding to know what her mother was looking at. 30 minutes later, Dr. Cristina Rodriguez from the hospital called. "Mr. Matthews?" "Karen asked me to mediate. She says you've been emotionally abusive, monitoring her movements, accusing her of infidelity without cause. Private information like text messages planning an affair with another doctor at your hospital?" I pulled up another folder. "What's your email, Dr. Rodriguez?" "Karen came to you portraying herself as a victim. I'm offering actual evidence." After a pause, she gave her email. I sent the timeline of lies, the deleted messages, the financial records showing expensive dates I never attended. 20 minutes later, she called back, voice completely different. "Mr. Matthews, I owe you an apology. The doctor she's been messaging is Dr. Carlton, our chief of cardiology. This could be an ethics violation. That's between your hospital and them. I'm just focused on my divorce." At 3 p.m., Karen's BMW pulled up. She looked terrible, hair unbrushed, yesterday's makeup smeared, wearing sweatpants I'd never seen outside the house. She used her key when I didn't answer. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to discuss." I continued packing her winter coats. The messages with Dr. C were misunderstood. We were just friends, venting about work stress. I read from my phone. "I can't wait to feel your hands on me in Aspen. Greg will never know what he's missing while I'm discovering what real passion feels like." I looked up. Quite a misunderstanding. Her face crumpled. "Okay, yes, there was flirtation. But nothing physical happened. I got caught up in feeling desired again. But I never actually wanted freedom. I wanted you to fight for me, to show you still cared enough to be jealous." "So this was a test? You planned an affair, asked for freedom to execute it, all to see if I'd have a jealous meltdown?" "I wanted to feel important again. You're always working, focused on your clients and spreadsheets. When did you last look at me the way you look at a balanced budget?" The accusation stung. "When did you last let me? Every time I suggested date night, you had to work. Every time I tried intimacy, you were too tired. You spent 6 months pushing me away and now you're angry I gave you space?" "I made a mistake," she whispered. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk." This was multiple choices made deliberately over months. I handed her another suitcase. "You chose to message Dr. C instead of talking to me. You chose to plan a secret getaway. You chose to ask for freedom instead of honesty. Please, I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. Just don't throw away 7 years over this." I gently removed her hand from my arm. "I'm not throwing anything away. You did that when you decided our marriage was boring compared to whatever fantasy Dr. C was selling." I opened the door. "You should go before this gets worse. Where's the man I married? The one who loved me unconditionally? He's standing right here. But he's learned that unconditional love doesn't mean accepting conditional loyalty. You wanted freedom to explore options while keeping me as backup. I'm just removing myself from that equation. She took the suitcase and paused at the door, waiting for me to change my mind. When I didn't, she left without another word. I went back to packing. The house needed to be just mine, free of reminders that I'd spent 7 years with someone who saw me as a safety net instead of a partner. Within 12 hours, my phone became a battlefield of increasingly frantic messages. The first wave came at 2 a.m., long, rambling texts about how she couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't function without me. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, please just talk to me, followed by, you can't just throw away our marriage like this, then, I hate you for making me feel this way. The contradictions were fascinating. She wanted me back but resented that I had the power to hurt her. I left them all on read. By morning, her mother called again, but this time the conversation was completely different. Gregory, I don't know what to do with her. Barbara sounded exhausted. She's been up all night crying, saying her life is over. She keeps asking me to call you, to beg you to reconsider. I poured my coffee, listening with detachment. What would you like me to say, Barbara? That I'll take her back so she can finish planning her affair? No, she told me everything. About the messages, about this Dr. Carlton, about how she thought you'd fight for her. I raised her better than this. I'm ashamed. The admission caught me off guard. She made her choices. Now she's experiencing consequences. That's not cruelty, that's reality. I know. She keeps saying you've changed, that you're cold and unfeeling. But I told her, you're just finally seeing yourself clearly instead of through her manipulations. After Barbara hung up, I had maybe 30 minutes before my phone rang again. Unknown number. Mr. Matthews? Dr. Christina Rodriguez again. The hospital has become aware of the situation between Karen and Dr. Carlton. I lean back. I assume that's a problem professionally? It's a significant ethics violation. Dr. Carlton is married, and he's Karen's direct supervisor on several cases. The power dynamic alone is problematic. Karen is claiming the relationship was never physical, just emotional support. She's also saying you've been harassing her with the evidence you collected. I laughed. Harassing her? I sent exactly 2 emails. One to her mother after she called me abusive, one to you after Karen asked you to mediate based on lies. If that's harassment, what do you call spending months planning an affair? I believe you, Mr. Matthews. But you should know, Karen's telling everyone you're unstable, that you've been monitoring her for months, trying to destroy her career out of jealousy. The smear campaign had begun. Dr. Rodriguez, I have evidence of everything. Phone records, bank statements, her own deleted messages backed up to our home computer. If Karen wants to play victim, she'll have to explain away inconvenient facts. I understand. I just thought you should know. And for what it's worth, several of us noticed the change in Karen's behavior. The new clothes, the busy schedule, how she'd light up when Dr. Carlton entered a room. We just didn't want to believe it. The next call came from Derek, my poker buddy who worked in the same hospital system. Dude, what the hell? I just heard Karen crying in the break room, telling people you kicked her out without warning and are refusing marriage counseling. I explained while he listened with increasing disbelief. So she asked for freedom to cheat, got caught, and now she's the victim? Classic Karen move, honestly. Remember your birthday when she convinced everyone you'd forgotten the surprise party she was planning? Turns out she'd never planned anything and just didn't want to look bad. I'd forgotten about that, about a dozen other small instances where Karen had twisted reality. This time the evidence speaks for itself. At 4 p.m., she showed up at my office building. My assistant called, voice uncertain. Mr. Matthews? There's a woman claiming to be your wife. She's crying and says it's an emergency. When I went downstairs, I found Karen surrounded by concerned colleagues, playing devastated wife to perfection. Greg, please, she reached for me. Just 5 minutes. I need to explain. There's nothing to explain. We're separated. You should communicate through attorneys. I don't want attorneys. I want my husband back. I made a mistake, and you're punishing me forever. The scene was calculated to make me look heartless. Several people were whispering, "You didn't make a mistake. You made deliberate choices over several months. Now you're causing a scene at my workplace instead of respecting my boundaries." Boundaries? You're talking about boundaries when you won't even hear my apology? I heard your apology. I just don't accept it. I turned to walk away. How can you be so cruel? Where's the compassion? The forgiveness? She grabbed my arm, nails digging in. I gently removed her hand. Marriage is also about trust, honesty, and basic respect. You violated all three. Leave here. Don't make me call security. Her face transformed from pleading to furious. Fine. Be alone, Greg. Be miserable and alone for the rest of your life. She stormed out, but turned back to announce loudly, "I hope you're happy with your perfect, boring life and your spreadsheets. At least I tried to feel something real." The lobby went silent. I simply nodded to my assistant and went back to my office, refusing to give her performance more attention. That night, the messages reached fever pitch. Karen's friends started contacting me with, "You need to forgive her," or, "Marriage is about second chances." I blocked them all. Then came the message that crossed a line. "If you don't talk to me by tomorrow, I'm going to do something drastic. You'll regret treating me this way." I screenshot it immediately and forwarded it to my attorney with a note. "Document this. She's escalating." His response came within minutes. "File for a restraining order. This is a threat." I didn't want to escalate that far yet, but I was prepared. The woman who'd asked for freedom had found that freedom without a safety net was terrifying, and she was willing to do anything, lie, manipulate, threaten, to crawl back to security. But I was done being anyone's backup plan. The next evening, Karen showed up with a prepared speech. I heard her car at exactly 7 p.m., probably calculated timing for maximum emotional impact. When I opened the door, she was holding a thick folder, hair perfectly styled, makeup carefully applied. She transformed from desperate mess to composed advocate. "I'm not leaving until you hear me out," she announced, pushing past me. "You owe me that much." I stepped aside, more curious than concerned. "Fine. You have 15 minutes. She settled onto the couch like she still belonged there, arranging her papers with deliberate precision. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize this situation isn't entirely my fault. Yes, I made mistakes, but you created an environment that pushed me toward them. I almost laughed. An environment that pushed you toward planning an affair? Your dedication to your accounting firm made me feel neglected and invisible, she read from what looked like therapy notes. You prioritized clients over our relationship. I felt like I was competing with spreadsheets for your attention, and I was losing. I suggested date nights every week for 3 months, I countered. You turned down every single one, saying you had to work. I tried to initiate intimacy. You said you were too tired. I asked about your day. You gave one-word answers while scrolling your phone. Because you only did those things out of obligation, not genuine desire. I could tell your heart wasn't in it. You were just going through the motions of being a husband. I sat across from her. So I'm blamed for asking you on dates you rejected, for trying to connect when you pushed me away, for working to provide the lifestyle you enjoyed. And somehow that justifies planning an affair with Dr. Carlton. It wasn't an affair. It was companionship, attention, someone who made me feel seen. Do you know what it's like to feel invisible in your own marriage? To watch your husband care more about tax codes than your feelings? Do you know what it's like to watch your wife gradually detach while you're trying everything to maintain connection? I kept my voice level. I noticed every change, Karen. The new perfume you wore on work nights but never for me. The way you'd smile at your phone and hide the screen. The sudden need for privacy. She was quiet for a moment. You were too safe. Too predictable. Too boring. Every day was the same. Work, dinner, TV bit. Dr. Carlton made me feel alive with spontaneous helicopter rides and expensive dinners at places you'd never think to take me. Because I was saving for our future while he was spending hospital donations on impressing someone else's wife. You wanted excitement over stability, fantasy over reality. That's your choice, but don't blame me for being the foundation while you craved chaos. I thought you'd fight harder for me. She was crying now, desperate tears making her mascara run. When I asked for freedom, I expected you to make grand gestures, to prove you couldn't live without me. Instead, you just let me go. Like I meant nothing. I leaned forward. You staged a crisis to test my devotion. You wanted me to suffer, to beg, to prove my love by debasing myself while you had your affair. And when I didn't play along, you're angry that I respected your request for freedom. It wasn't a test. I was confused about what I wanted. You were crystal clear, 10 days to sleep with Dr. Carlton without consequences, then return to your safe, boring husband who'd been so traumatized by almost losing you that he'd never question anything again. I pulled out my phone. Here's where you told him you couldn't wait to be free of your ball and chain for the trip. Here's where you called our marriage dead weight I'm finally ready to drop. Want me to read more? She covered her face. I was angry when I wrote those things. I didn't mean them. You meant them enough to send them to another man while planning to maintain your marriage as backup. I put my phone away. The Karen I married would have had the courage to end things honestly. The Karen sitting here now is just sad I didn't make it easier for her to have both. I'm trying to take responsibility. I've admitted my mistakes. I've apologized. What more do you want from me? I want nothing from you, Karen. That's what you don't understand. You keep trying to negotiate, to find the magic combination of words that will reset us. But there is no reset. There's just reality, and the reality is you showed me exactly who you are when you thought you could get away with it. She stood abruptly, gathering her papers with shaking hands. Fine. Be alone then. Be miserable with your principles and your righteous anger. I'd rather be alone with self-respect than partnered with someone who views marriage as a safety net while they test other options. I opened the door. You wanted freedom. You have it. Stop trying to give it back now that it's not what you expected. She paused at the threshold. You knew about the affair for 3 weeks, didn't you? You watched me lie to your face and you said nothing. You let me dig myself deeper while you collected evidence like some cold, calculating robot. That's just as cruel as anything I did. You're right. I knew for 3 weeks. I met her eyes. I wanted to see if you'd tell me the truth, if you'd show any genuine remorse before executing your plan. Instead, you looked me in the eye every night and asked how my day was while planning your romantic getaway. You made dinner plans with me for the same week you'd scheduled your freedom. You even asked me to pick up dry cleaning for the dress you were planning to wear for him. Her face went white. So yes, I watched you. I documented your lies. I gave you every opportunity to be honest, and you chose deception every single time. That's not cruelty, Karen. That's learning exactly who I married before making my final decision. She had no response. She simply walked to her car, got in, and drove away without looking back. I stood in the doorway watching her leave, feeling nothing but relief. Inside, I poured myself a drink and called my attorney. She's going to fight this. Be prepared for her to claim emotional abuse, financial control, whatever narrative makes her the victim. Let her try. We have evidence, and more importantly, we have the truth. As I hung up, I realized Karen's biggest mistake wasn't the affair. It was underestimating me. She'd spent so long viewing me as boring and predictable that she forgot I was also intelligent, observant, and capable of making hard decisions when necessary. 2 days later, my office receptionist buzzed me. Mr. Matthews, there's a Dr. Carlton here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent regarding a personal matter. I felt my jaw tighten. Send him in. Dr. Michael Carlton walked in looking nothing like I'd imagined, mid-40s, graying at temples, expensive suit. He stood awkwardly near my desk. Mr. Matthews, I need to speak with you about Karen. I want you to know I'm not here to apologize. I'm here to warn you that Karen has been telling people at the hospital that you've been threatening her, trying to destroy her career out of jealousy. She's painting you as unstable and dangerous. I pulled out my phone and hit record, setting it between us. You don't mind if I document this? His eyes flicked to the phone. I suppose not. Look, the affair was a mistake. Karen pursued me quite aggressively after I started at the hospital. She was very persuasive about her unhappy marriage, about how you were controlling and emotionally distant. And you believed her without question? She was convincing. And honestly, I was flattered. He finally sat down. But now she's spiraling. The hospital board has launched an ethics investigation. She's claiming it was consensual, but I'm her supervisor. The power dynamic makes it a violation regardless. I studied him. Why are you really here? Because I'm worried about my reputation, my career, my marriage. My wife found out through the hospital grapevine. She's filing for divorce. The hospital is considering terminating my position. And Karen is getting more erratic, showing up at my office crying, sending dozens of messages a day, telling anyone who'll listen that we were in love and you destroyed everything. He leaned forward. We were never in love. It was flirtation that went too far. A few dinners, inappropriate messages. We never actually had the physical affair she'd been planning. When she asked for those 10 days of freedom, I panicked and ended things. Told her I couldn't risk my marriage and career for a fantasy. I absorbed this. So when Karen asked me for freedom, you'd already rejected her? Yes. I told her 3 days before she approached you. She was devastated, said she'd already set everything in motion and couldn't back out. I assumed she meant she'd already told you about wanting separation. He ran his hand through his hair. I didn't realize she was trying to manipulate you into fighting for her while using me as leverage. The pieces clicked into place. Karen hadn't wanted freedom to be with Dr. Carlton. She'd wanted to manipulate me into competing for her to soothe her ego after he'd dumped her. Does the hospital know this timeline? I've told the ethics board everything. But Karen is claiming I'm lying to save myself. He looked genuinely distressed. Mr. Matthews, I crossed professional lines and betrayed my wife. But I'm not the predator Karen is making me out to be, and you're not the abusive husband she's describing. If this goes legal, I need someone who can verify that she was the pursuer, that she manipulated both of us. I'll consider it, I said. But understand something, I don't care about your career or your marriage. Whatever happens to you is between you, your wife, and your hospital. He nodded, standing to leave. For what it's worth, you're well rid of her. The woman I got to know wasn't someone capable of genuine love. She collected people like trophies and discarded them when they stopped serving her purposes. That evening, my poker group gathered. Derek raised his beer in a toast. To Greg, for finally seeing what we all knew for years, Karen was bad news. I realized they'd all been waiting for me to wake up. You all knew. We had suspicions, Tom admitted. The way she'd flirt with other guys when you weren't looking, how she always had excuses when you invited her to events, the constant hints that she'd settled by marrying an accountant. Why didn't anyone say anything? Would you have believed us? Derek asked. You were in love with who you thought she was, not who she actually was. My phone buzzed with messages from mutual friends. The story had spread, and people were taking sides. Most were supportive, sharing observations about Karen's behavior. But a few sent accusatory messages about how I'd humiliated her publicly. I blocked them without response. Then came a text from Karen's sister, Emily. Greg, I'm so sorry. I just heard everything from Mom. This isn't the first time Karen has done something like this. She had a pattern in past relationships, creating drama to test whether guys would fight for her, always having backup options lined up. I should have warned you before the wedding, but I thought maybe she'd changed. I was wrong. I stared at the message, realizing I'd never really known the woman I married. You okay? Tom asked. Yeah. Just realizing I dodged a bullet. More like dodged a whole firing squad, Derek laughed. That woman was going to make your life miserable whether you caught her or not. At least now you're free. The next morning brought news from Dr. Rodriguez. Mr. Matthews, the ethics investigation has concluded. Dr. Carlton has been placed on administrative leave. Karen has been terminated effective immediately for violation of professional conduct policies and for making false claims against multiple colleagues, including Dr. Carlton and myself. She made false claims against you? She told the board I was helping you spy on her, that I'd violated patient confidentiality. When they reviewed the actual communications, they found she'd lied about nearly everything. She's threatening to sue the hospital for wrongful termination. Let me guess, she wants a settlement to go away quietly? Exactly. But the hospital has decided to fight it. They have too much evidence of her misconduct. As I hung up, I realized Karen's world was completely imploding, and she'd done it all to herself. 3 weeks after Karen lost her hospital position, I received a package at my office. Inside was a thick folder containing therapy worksheets, journal entries, and a handwritten letter. Greg, I've been doing the work. Real work. I've enrolled in intensive therapy 3 times a week with Dr. Patricia Morrison, a specialist in relationship trauma and self-destructive patterns. I'm learning about my attachment issues, my need for validation, the ways I sabotage good things. I know sorry isn't enough. But I want you to see that I'm changing, that I'm becoming the woman you deserved. Please look at these pages. See the effort I'm putting in. The folder was filled with exercises about identifying manipulative behaviors, worksheets on healthy communication, journal entries detailing her realization of how she'd treated me. It was impressive in its thoroughness, clearly designed to show serious commitment. I threw it all in the recycling bin without reading past the first page. 2 days later, her attorney sent a letter requesting a 6-month delay in divorce proceedings to allow Karen time to demonstrate her commitment to change. My client has enrolled in intensive therapy and wishes to show good faith efforts toward reconciliation. I had my attorney respond with a single sentence. Mr. Matthews declines and wishes to proceed with the divorce as scheduled. That weekend, Tom called. You hear what happened with Dr. Carlton? He completely ghosted Karen. Blocked her on everything, told the hospital board she was harassing him, even got a cease and desist order. When did this happen? Last week. Apparently, she showed up at his house at 2 a.m. crying, woke up his wife and kids. The wife called the police. Tom paused. Karen's telling everyone that Dr. Carlton used her and threw her away, but this time nobody's buying it. And she dropped the hospital lawsuit. Turns out her attorney looked at the evidence and advised her to walk away. She's completely unemployable in healthcare now. The following Tuesday, Derek called while I was working late. You need to see this. Karen's at Murphy's Steakhouse having a complete meltdown. She's drunk, crying, making a scene. The staff called me because they thought you should know. I drove there, not because I cared about Karen but because I didn't want her causing a scene that might reflect on me. When I walked in, the hostess directed me to the back corner where Karen sat alone, surrounded by empty wine glasses. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, makeup smeared, wearing sweatpants to a place with a dress code. Greg! She lurched toward me when she saw me, nearly knocking over the table. You came. I knew you still cared. I steadied her, keeping my voice low. I'm here to get you a ride home, that's all. No, we need to talk. I need to make you understand. I made mistakes, but I love you. Her voice was too loud, slurred. Please, Greg. Please forgive me. I can't do this without you. Everything hurts and I just want to come home. I gently removed her hands from my shirt. You need help, Karen. Professional help. But not from me. I am getting help. I showed you the therapy work. I'm changing. Why isn't it enough? What more do I have to do? Nothing. There's nothing you can do. The marriage is over. Accept it and move on. Move on. She laughed, a horrible broken sound. Move on to what? I lost my job. Dr. Carlton wants nothing to do with me. My mother barely speaks to me. You were my life, Greg. Without you, I have nothing. That's not my problem to fix. You made your choices. Now live with them. I walked out, leaving her crying in the booth. The manager apologized as I passed, saying they'd get her home safely. I drove home feeling nothing but relief. A week later, the divorce papers were served at her mother's house in Boulder where Karen had been living. According to Barbara, who called me afterwards, Karen had a complete breakdown requiring psychiatric hospitalization. She's in a 72-hour hold at Cedar Springs. The doctors say she's not suicidal, just experiencing a major depressive episode. She keeps saying her life is over. I'm sorry she's struggling, but this doesn't change anything between us. I know. I'm not calling to ask you to reconsider. I'm calling to ask you to please block her number when she gets out. She needs to accept that you're gone. Barbara paused. Gregory, I owe you an apology. I raised her to believe she deserved the best without teaching her to be the best. I created this entitled, manipulative person who destroyed a good marriage. You were the best thing that ever happened to her, and I'm sorry I didn't see that until it was too late. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house, truly mine now, with all of Karen's belongings finally gone, and felt the weight of 7 years lifting. I called my attorney. Let's finalize this divorce as quickly as possible. I want to be done. For what it's worth, you handled this entire situation with remarkable restraint. You just walked away and let her consequences be her own. Revenge would have required me to care. I just want my freedom back, the real kind. 2 months later, I was finally legally free. A year passed with Karen sending monthly handwritten letters that I returned unopened to her therapist's office address. I'd moved on completely, thrown myself into work, reconnected with old friends, started actually enjoying life without constantly wondering if I was enough for someone who would never be satisfied. The promotion to senior partner came 6 months after the divorce, along with a substantial raise that I immediately invested in my future instead of someone else's fantasy lifestyle. I ran into Karen at a charity 5K race that my firm was sponsoring. I was there with Sophia Martinez, a divorce attorney I'd met through mutual friends, sharp, funny, confident in ways that had nothing to do with manipulation. We'd been dating for 3 months, taking things slow, building something real. I spotted Karen near the water station, looking exhausted and diminished. She'd lost weight, her hair was dull, the designer clothes replaced with discount athletic wear. She was alone, checking her phone with desperate frequency. Is that her? Sophia asked quietly. Yeah. She looks different. She looks lost, Sophia observed. As we warmed up, Karen spotted me. Her eyes widened, hope, panic, shame flickering across her face. She took a step toward us, then stopped, seeming to realize that the man standing confidently with another woman wasn't the same person she'd left. Greg, she called out uncertainly. I turned, keeping Sophia's hand in mine. Karen. She approached slowly. You look really good. Happy. I am. This is Sophia. Sophia, this is Karen. We used to be married. Nice to meet you, Sophia said warmly, extending her hand with genuine friendliness that somehow made Karen look smaller. Karen shook it mechanically. I didn't know you'd be here. It's been challenging. I'm working as a pharmaceutical sales rep now. Lost my medical license after everything that happened. Still living with my mom in Boulder. Can't afford my own place on commission. She studied my face. I heard about your promotion. Senior partner at 43. That's impressive. Thank you. The conversation was stilted, 2 strangers making small talk about lives that no longer intersected. I've been thinking about us lately, Karen said. About what we had. How I threw it all away for nothing. The past is the past. We both moved on. Have we though? She looked directly at me, ignoring Sophia. I think about you every day. About how different things would be if I hadn't been so stupid. If I'd appreciated what I had instead of chasing some fantasy. I felt Sophia's hand squeeze mine gently. Karen, what happened between us taught me what I actually deserve. Someone who doesn't need to test my devotion, who doesn't see our relationship as a backup plan. I'm grateful you left, honestly. It freed me to find something real. The words hit her visibly. She's lucky. Greg is one of the good ones. Loyal, thoughtful, patient. Everything I took for granted. I know, Sophia said kindly. And I don't take any of it for granted. Karen's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, expression going flat. I should go. My mom's waiting. She drives me to these things since I can't afford my car anymore. She looked at me one last time. I'm happy you found someone who deserves you, Greg. Really. And I'm sorry. For all of it. Take care, Karen, I said, then turned back to Sophia. Ready to run? As we jogged toward the starting line, Sophia asked, How do you feel? Honestly? Nothing. She's just someone I used to know who made bad choices. I smiled. I feel more for you after 3 months than I felt for her in the last 2 years of our marriage. The race started, and I didn't look back. Weeks later, my mother called with gossip. Karen moved to Portland apparently. Barbara told the ladies at church that she couldn't find work here, too many burned bridges. She's working night shifts at some urgent care clinic and living alone in a studio apartment. That's unfortunate, I said, genuinely meaning it. I didn't wish Karen ill, I just didn't wish her anything at all. 6 months later, I was closing on a new downtown loft. Sleek, modern, exactly what I wanted without compromise. As I signed the final papers, I reflected on the journey from that Tuesday night when Karen asked for freedom to this moment of complete independence. I pulled out my phone and saw a notification, another attempt from an unknown number. Greg, it's me. I know you blocked me everywhere, but I needed you to know I'm still working on myself. Still going to therapy. Still hoping that someday you might forgive me, that we might have another chance. I made the biggest mistake of my life walking away from you. I deleted it without responding and blocked the number. There was no we anymore, no could be worth considering. Sophia texted, "How's the closing going? Want to celebrate tonight?" I smiled, typing back, "Closing went perfectly. Dinner at 7? My place, our place if you want to start leaving some things here." Our place. I like the sound of that. That night, standing in my new loft with Sophia in my arms, I realized Karen had actually done me the greatest favor. She'd freed me from settling for conditional love, from accepting crumbs of affection while giving everything. She'd taught me the difference between someone who wants you and someone who wants what you provide. The woman who demanded freedom to find herself had instead freed me to find myself, and in the process, I'd found someone who actually deserved the man I'd become. As I looked out at the Denver skyline, I thought about Karen in Portland, working night shifts, living alone with her regrets. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, no vindication in her suffering. I just felt grateful for the lesson, that self-respect meant refusing to be someone's backup plan, that walking away with dignity was its own reward, and that the right person wouldn't need 10 days of freedom to appreciate what they had. I'd given her exactly what she asked for, permanent freedom, and discovered that it was the greatest gift she could have accidentally given me. My wife demanded 1 week of freedom, and I gave her a lifetime. And in watching her shatter, I'd finally become whole.